It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Prime Minister's warning to Iran. After a series of anti-Semitic attacks, Sir Keir Starmer says any attempt from Tehran to sow hatred or division in the UK will not be tolerated as the government investigates possible foreign involvement. It comes as thousands gather in North London to show support for the Jewish community. We'll be there live. Also tonight, the cruise ship hit by a deadly disease. The UK government says it is putting plans in place to bring home travellers stuck on board the boat that's marooned in the South Atlantic Ocean. One British man is in intensive care. Plus, I speak to primary school teacher Molly Penfold, who's campaigning for mandatory CCTV in all areas of hospitality venues after she believes she was spiked while out with friends. And we hear from the midwives calling for more government support to help improve maternity care across the country. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. First tonight, the Prime Minister warning Iran that it will face consequences if it is proven to be behind recent anti-Semitic attacks in the UK. Sir Keir Starmer said any attempt from Tehran to sow violence, hatred or division in British society will not be tolerated as the government investigates possible foreign involvement in a series of recent attacks. Sir Keir Starmer was speaking in Downing Street, where he hosted an emergency meeting of senior figures from across public life to discuss tackling growing anti-Semitism in the UK. It comes after 2 Jews were stabbed in Golders Green last week, while today it was revealed counter-terrorism police are investigating a suspected arson at a former synagogue in East London. Let's cross now to Stamford Hill in North London. People there gathering tonight to show support for the Jewish community. Sky's Olivia Guthrie is there for us. Olivia.
Well, Sarah-Jane's Jewish families are streaming into Stamford Hill here tonight amidst tight security. There are metal barriers on the streets outside and 140 security personnel and police in place for this Orthodox Jewish festival. Now, I'm not allowed down there in the crowds because this is a very holy event, but tonight the organisers say is particularly significant, the rabbi offering special prayers in the wake of those anti-Semitic attacks, including the stabbing of 2 Jewish men in Golders Green last week and that suspected arson attack on a former synagogue in Whitechapel this morning. The Met Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, saying that Jews are facing their gravest threat to date in the UK. And the Prime Minister at that summit in Downing Street this morning saying that the whole of society must not turn a blind eye to extremism.
We must also deal with the forces that drive this hatred in the first place. So we're confronting them directly. One of the lines of inquiry is whether a foreign state has been behind some of these incidents. We're investigating, of course, all the possibilities. And we're clear that these actions will have consequences if that proves to be the case. Our message to Iran or to any other country that might seek to foment violence, hatred or division in society is that it will not be tolerated. That is why we're fast-tracking legislation to tackle these malign threats.
Well, the organisers of this event joked that they often talk of a solidarity salad of words from the Prime Minister, but they hope now that he will, in fact, take action. Now, amongst the action that the Prime Minister said he would be taking is that he will be issuing new guidance to prosecutors to fast-track those hate crime cases, with the Director of Public Prosecutions today saying that he hopes that it draws a line in the sand, Sarah-Jane, as to the rise of anti-Semitism and the incidents that we've been seeing. But as things hot up here tonight, these people are determined to continue to celebrate despite the terrible things that have happened to them in recent weeks.
Loudly and proudly. Olivia, thank you. Olivia Guthrie in Stamford Hill for us this evening. Now, the government says it is putting plans in place to bring home British travellers who are stuck on board a cruise ship that's been hit by an outbreak of the deadly disease hantavirus. 3 people have died and a British man is in intensive care. The ship is currently marooned in the South Atlantic Ocean, waiting for 2 ill crew members to be evacuated for treatment. Our health correspondent Ashish Joshi has the latest.
It's sold as an Antarctic Odyssey, a spectacular 42-night cruise from the Antarctic Circle, crossing the equator to the coast of West Africa. A once-in-a-lifetime dream.
For going in the ice and spotting wildlife like whales, this is the perfect ship.
The ship's chef posted this picture on the night before they set sail. But Kabir Moraes, on the bottom right, and his shipmates on board the MV Hondias did not know that their dream would turn into a nightmare. Just 10 days into their cruise, a passenger died, others fell critically ill, and the ship is now at the centre of a suspected hantavirus outbreak. The MV Hondias set sail on the cruise, which cost anywhere between £6,000 and £18,000 on the 1st of April, from Argentina. It made its way through the southern Atlantic Ocean on its way to Cape Verde on the 3rd of May, and that's where it remains.
The plan now is for the ship to continue on to the Canary Islands. We're working with Spanish authorities who will welcome the ship, have said that they will welcome the ship, to do a full investigation, a full epidemiologic investigation, full disinfection of the ship, and of course to assess the risk of the passengers that are actually on board.
Hantavirus is spread through rodent droppings, urine or saliva. The virus particles, once dried out, can be breathed in. Early symptoms are like flu, but can turn into a deadly infection of the lungs or kidneys. Human-to-human transmission is extremely rare, but WHO experts think that this may be happening on board the Hondias. So far, 3 passengers have died, a German traveller and a Dutch couple, whose family paid this tribute. The beautiful journey they experienced together was abruptly and permanently cut short. We are still unable to comprehend that we have lost them. We wish to bring them home and commemorate them in peace and privacy. WHO medical experts are on board the ship. Critically ill passengers and crew will be medevaced, and facilities are being prepared on nearby Cape Verde.
A dedicated team has been formed with doctors, infectious disease specialists, nurses and laboratory technicians to support patients on board and, if necessary, also on land.
It's hoped the Canary Islands will offer a safe port, but that is being resisted by the island's officials. The ordeal for the passengers and crew of the MV Hondias is not yet over. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
Police in Bristol say a 35-year-old woman and her ex-partner were killed after he forced his way into her house with an explosive device. Joe Shaw and 41-year-old Ryan Kelly died in the blast on Sunday, with officers treating Miss Shaw's death as a homicide. 3 other people were treated for minor injuries. Sky's Dan Whitehead has the latest.
Well, there's still a police presence here on Stonecourt Road in Bristol. Behind me, you can see the property boarded up after that explosion in the early hours of Sunday morning. The update from Avon and Somerset Police confirming, as you mentioned, the formal identification process still ongoing, but it is believed that the female victim, a woman, a 35-year-old woman by the name of Joe Shaw, who lived at the address, the man, a 41-year-old man, believed to be her former partner, Ryan Kelly. Some interesting detail as well to the timeline of events on Sunday morning. Police confirming that they were called by a person inside the property, not one of the 2 who died, at around 6:17 in the morning, reporting a domestic-related incident. They stated that a man who they knew had forced entry into this house. Now, police say that several crews were initially dispatched to the address. The caller remained on the line, and at approximately 6:30 in the morning on Sunday, the caller told the police that the man was believed to be in possession of an explosive device. 2 minutes later, an explosion occurred at the property. Now, the first officers arrived at the scene here shortly after, around 6:34 in the morning. They were then, of course, joined by fire and ambulance services shortly after, and those 2 people, the man and the woman, died following the injuries sustained seen during this incident. As you mentioned, 3 others who were inside the property at the time were taken to hospital with minor injuries. Another point to mention that Avon and Somerset Police have confirmed that they have made a mandatory referral to the police watchdog, the IOPC. Now, they say this is on the grounds of the deaths occurring following previous police contact, specifically on other domestic incidents being reported to us prior to Sunday. That is the update from police confirming that ID, and indeed that during that terrifying call on Sunday morning with a member inside this property reporting that this man who had forced entry appeared to have an explosive device before detonating that. No specific details yet as to what that device exactly was. Still a police presence outside the property here, and Avon and Somerset Police referring itself to the police watchdog.
Dan Whitehead reporting there. Now, 4 Palestine Action activists have been found guilty of criminal damage at a UK site of an Israel-based defence firm following a retrial. A court hearing that they used a prison van to ram into Elbit Systems in Bristol back in August 2024. They then went on to destroy computers, drones and other equipment with sledgehammers and crowbars. It's estimated that the group caused £1 million worth of damage. 2 others were found not guilty. Right, let's just go to Washington now. Marco Rubio standing in for Caroline Leavitt today, answering press questions at the White House. Let's listen in.
As you know, over the weekend, the president announced this Project Freedom. And the goal of it is to, frankly, if you want to talk about it, it's to rescue like almost 23,000 civilians from 87 different countries that are trapped inside of the Gulf and left for dead in the Persian Gulf by this Iranian regime. You know, for more than 2 months now, these innocent sailors and commercial crew members have been stranded out at sea because Iran is conducting something that's not just criminal. It's criminal for sure, but it's desperate and destructive, this blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. Nations from around the world, the overwhelming majority of whom are not even engaged in any military hostilities, are now at risk not just of losing their cargo, but the lives of their own citizens because of this blockade. These ships, you know, you don't leave a ship out there for this long. You start running out of food, you start running out of potable water, essential supplies, and they're at the mercy of this piracy. What it is, it's piracy. And not only that, but some of them have seen, you know, been open fire on and rained down senseless attacks on several civilian ships already. So frankly, the way to put it, these are innocent bystanders. These are countries that, and ships and so forth that have nothing to do with any of this and nonetheless are being caught in the middle of it and being held hostage merely because Iran could do that, just because of, just as the regime brutally slaughtered tens of thousands of their own citizens for the crime of peaceful protest, because they're unhappy with the quality of life or the lack of quality of life in Iran today. And so they're sitting ducks. They're isolated, they're starving, they're vulnerable, and at least 10 sailors have already died as a result of the civilian sailors. So already many nations privately and some publicly have asked the United States to help free their ships and to restore freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and this critical artery of global trade. And so President Trump, as he always does, stepped up and answered the calls for their help. And he's directed the United States military to guide these stranded ships to safety, to provide a protective bubble under which they can operate and move product and get themselves out of there and out of the harm's way. And this is the first step towards reopening the strait and bringing this regime's last-ditch act of economic arson, bringing that to a close. We're doing it not only because we were asked, but because we're the only ones who can. Only we have the power to sort of take the steps that we've taken now. Under this president, under President Trump, the United States will help our friends. We're going to stand up to rogue regimes like the one in Tehran, and we're going to be unashamed to use our power and our abilities to project military power in the service of our national interest above all else. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay? We're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on a ship and shoot it up. We're going to respond to it, and we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted, and will continue to be if they pose a threat to our forces. We'll shoot down drones, we'll shoot down missiles, but it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here. just about the importance of the Straits for a moment. This is approximately a quarter of the world's oil trade, along with significant volumes of fuel and fertilizer that operate through the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranian regime cannot be allowed to dictate who uses this vital waterway. I don't think this is also being reported enough. Maybe you are reporting. I don't read everyone. I don't know many damn outlets here. I don't know who you all are, but I mean, I know who some of you are, but I don't know all of you are. But I will say this about it. This is an international waterway. Okay, this is an international waterway. And international law is very clear, and I love it because everybody always talks about international law, and this international law on this is very clear. International waterways, no country can control them. There is no international law that allows you to say, I'm going to put mines in an international body of water and I'm going to blow up ships that don't listen to us and try to go through. That's what Iran is doing. This is a criminal act. And someone needs to do something about it. Something needs to be done. It's completely illegal, completely illegitimate, and completely unacceptable. And that's why the United States military is guiding stranded commercial ships safely through the strait and is working to restore freedom of navigation and putting an end to these efforts to hold the global economy hostage. So far, as a proof of concept and as a proof of function, 2 U.S.-flagged merchant ships have successfully transferred the Strait of Hormuz in the first stages of this project, and they're now safely on their way. The U.S. military is deploying the necessary assets to extend this defensive umbrella over commercial shipping. But there should be no mistake. And as I said this already, this is a defensive operation. I want to reiterate that point. This is important to understand. If no shots are fired at these ships and no shots are fired at us, we're not firing shots. But if we're fired on, we will respond, and we will respond with lethal efficiency. The assets supporting this project, by the way, include guided missile destroyers, over 100 land and sea-based aircraft, multi-domain unmanned platforms, and 15,000 of the finest military service members on the planet. These forces have already destroyed, as I told you earlier, I thought it was 6, it's 7 Iranian fast boats that failed to heed our warnings. And by fast boats, we're talking about, some of these things look like Boston whalers. Okay, so these are not like Navy ships. But nonetheless, they come fast at these boats, try to swarm them, try to harm them. We're not going to let that happen. So 7 of them now sit at the bottom of the sea, along with, by the way, the rest of Iran's Navy. That's where you can find their Navy today. And we're going to continue to systematically clear this passageway through the straits to restore freedom of navigation. Now, while this project steadily progresses, Operation Economic Fury, continues to impose maximum pressure on the Iranian regime and what remains of their already frail economy. Today, inflation in Iran is 70%, and their currency is in total and complete freefall. U.S. sanctions enforcement is stepping up. It's moving in lockstep with the naval blockade to degrade Iran's capacity to generate, to move, and repatriate revenue. It directly targets the regime's primary revenue lifelines. The blockade alone is costing Iran as much as $500 million a day in lost revenue. 90% of total Iranian trade has been halted, causing permanent damage to Iran's oil infrastructure as wells are forced to shut in. Again, all of this is in response to their piracy. Okay, it cannot be that you have these straits and they blow up any ship that moves and the only ships that get to go through are theirs. You can't have a situation in which the straits are closed to everyone else, but they benefit from the piracy. That can't happen. That's why the blockade is in place, and that's why these sanctions are crippling them. Any foreign financial, and by the way, Treasury is now identifying and cutting off every dollar of revenue that's flowing to this regime. And so, look, any foreign financial institution or commercial actor that enables Iran's sanctions evasion is going to face secondary sanctions exposure and a loss of access to the U.S. financial system. As President Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be opened, back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal here. Every day the conflict continues, however, our leverage on Iran will continue to increase, and their position will continue to weaken, especially as the blockade really begins to bite in conjunction with the sanctions. So, look, the time's come for Iran to make a sensible choice. And it's not easy for them to do that, obviously, because they have a fracture in their own leadership system. And apart from that, I mean, the top people in that government are, to say the least, they're insane in the brain. And so we need to address that, and it's difficult because it's hard to get past that in their system. But it's important for them to make a sensible choice and the one that's right for their people. The president, our president, has proven time and again that his preference is peace. But Iran must accept the reality of this situation and come to the negotiation table and accept terms that are good for them, but ultimately good for the world. The diplomatic path, if there's a real diplomatic path, I'm not sure it's going to be one, but if there's a real diplomatic path and we continue to explore it, Steve and Jared are working on that very hard. If there is one there, it could be one that leads them to reconstruction, to prosperity, and to stability, and to not posing a threat to the world. The alternative is growing isolation, economic collapse, and ultimately total defeat. I know what the right choice is for Iran. I hope that the people over there making decisions will make the right one. The last point I would make, and it really is important for them to understand this, is they really shouldn't test the will of the United States, at least not under President Donald Trump. He has proven time and again that he will back up what he says. And if they test him, ultimately they will lose. The hard way, the easy way, the long way, the short way, they will lose. And with that, it's time for your questions. So, Catherine, why don't we start with you first?
Hi, Catherine Harris. I'm an independent journalist. Secretary Rubio, have you seen any recent indications that Iran is willing to give up its nuclear weapons program that is credible, verifiable, and that would lead to an immediate de-escalation?
Well, look, this is a long-standing problem for them, right? I mean, they have wanted, they have always said they don't want a nuclear weapon. That's because they've always said that, they just don't mean it. And why do you say, well, how do you know they don't mean it? Well, we don't mean it because they're doing all the things, and historically have tried to do all the things that you do if you want a nuclear weapons program. For example, they innovate and try to innovate long-range delivery missiles that now, in some cases, are capable of reaching much of Europe. They build these large underground centrifuges for enrichment activity. There are countries in the world that are involved in the enrichment business, but these guys do it in mountains and in caves and in hiding. They've always had secret components of their nuclear program undisclosed to the world. And we know for a fact that they retain highly enriched uranium at 60%, that they did so, and that has no civilian use, none, zero whatsoever. So they have an opportunity here to agree to something that will make it clear that they're not interested in a one thing is to say we don't want a nuclear weapon. Another thing is to do the things that prove you don't want a nuclear weapon. By the way, if what Iran wants is a civilian nuclear program for power plants and stuff like that, there are a lot of countries in the world that have that, and they don't enrich. They import the enriched material. You know, they could have that if that's what they wanted, but they're not acting like that's what they wanted. They're acting like they want a military, nuclear program. That's unacceptable. So that's the process we're engaged in now. To create, that's the object of this diplomacy, is to come up with some level of understanding about what are the topics that they've agreed to negotiate on. We don't have to have the actual agreement written out, and one day this is highly complex and highly technical. But we have to have a diplomatic solution that is very clear about the topics that they are willing to negotiate on and the extent and the concessions they're willing to make at the front end in order to make those talks worthwhile. That's what Steve and Jared and the whole team is working on, and I hope to have good news on it. That's the outcome we would prefer. That's the outcome we would have preferred a year ago. That's the outcome I think most of us would have preferred a long time ago. But that's not the option they've given us, given their activity. All right, there's no way I can figure out who to call on. I'm just going to press right in the middle, right there, you right there, yeah. In the back row.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll go to you next. I can't get everybody. You know that. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Secretary Rubio.
Keep going right.
Welcome to the White House.
What's that?
Talking to me, sir?
Yeah, to you, yes, sir.
Thank you. I have two questions on two separate issues that come under...
Do they get two questions for these?
Two questions.
There's a lot of people in here.
That fall under your umbrella.
All right, well, you can ask me two questions. I'll give you one answer. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
And I'll pick the one I like better.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The first has to do with the blockade. There are lawmakers from both parties who claim the blockade is an act of war. What do you say to that? And my second question has to do with the fuel embargo of Cuba. How long, Mr. Secretary, will that last?
Okay, two things. All right, good. I'll answer both your questions because I like the second one too. The first one on the blockade. And so why do we have a blockade? We have a blockade because they shut down the straits. So I don't know which members of Congress you're talking to, but here's what I would ask them. I would ask everybody here. It's very simple. These guys have shut down the Straits of Hormuz. This is what Iran is saying. We will shut down the straits. No one can go through. No country in the world can go through unless we allow you to go through, and you have to pay us. But our ships can go through, meaning the Iranian ships, as much as they want. That's crazy. Who would agree to that? So how are we going to have a situation where they get to close the straits to everybody, and the only people who are allowed to go through there 100% without paying anything are the Iranians? If you do that, they'll keep the straits closed forever. They're trying to make this some new normal. Okay, under no circumstances can we ever allow them to normalize the fact that they get to blow up commercial ships and put mines in the water. So the response to that is we're going to blockade your ships. If everyone's ships are not getting out, your ships are not getting out either. That's not an act of war. That's a defensive measure. It's a counter to what they have decided to do. You know what is an act of war? Putting mines in the water. Why don't the members of Congress, whoever it is complaining about it, they should be all over that. These guys put mines in the water. That alone, mining in the water is illegal, period, under any circumstances, and they've done it. This is crazy stuff, but this is what they've done. On Cuba, oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba, per se. Here's what's happening with Cuba, okay? Cuba used to get free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a bunch of free oil. They would take like 60% of that oil and resell it for cash. It wouldn't even go to benefit the people. So the only blockade that's happened is the Cubans have decided, the Venezuelans have decided, we're not giving you free oil anymore. And you can only imagine nowadays, the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil, much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. Doesn't work. And the people who are in charge can't fix it. And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists, that's bad enough, but they're incompetent communists. The only thing worse than a communist is an incompetent one. And that's what, so incompetent communists run that country. They don't know how to fix it. They really don't. And we have 90 miles from our shores a failed state that also happens to be friendly territory for some of our adversaries. So it's an unacceptable status quo. I will be addressing it, but not today. Okay. All right, let's go to the front, right there.
Secretary Rubio.
Yeah.
You are going to the Vatican to meet with the Pope. Is this an attempt to smooth things over with the Pope, given the rhetoric between President Trump and Pope Leo?
No, it's a trip we had planned from before, and obviously we had some stuff that happened. And no, look, there's a lot to talk about with the Vatican. I'll give you one example. The Pope just returned from a trip to Africa, where the church is growing very vibrantly. And we have shared concerns about religious freedom, freedom in different parts of the world. We'd love to talk to them about that. The topic of Cuba, we gave Cuba $6 million of humanitarian aid, but obviously they won't let us distribute it. We distributed it through the church. We'd like to do more. We're willing to give more humanitarian aid to Cuba, by the way, distributed through the church, but the Cuban regime has to allow us to do it. They won't allow us to give their own people more humanitarian aid, and we're willing to do it through the church. So there's a lot to talk about.
And the president recently said that the Pope is endangering a lot of Catholics as a result of his rhetoric around the Iran war. Is that a sentiment?
Well, I don't think that's an accurate description of what he said. I think what the president basically said is that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon because they would use it against places that have a lot of Catholics and Christians and others, for that matter. It goes back to the central point. I think the president, without trying to speak for him, but I think I can characterize it this way. He doesn't understand why anybody, leave aside the Pope, the president, and I, for that matter, I think most people, I cannot understand why anyone would think that it's a good idea for Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon. Look what they're doing with the Straits right now. They're holding the whole world hostage. They have these sailors, on commercial ships that are going to starve to death out there. They don't care. They don't care that this is melting down the economies around the world, even of their own allies. This is what they're doing with the Straits. What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon. That's what they would do. They would do exactly to the world with a nuclear weapon what they're doing now with the Straits. And I think the president's point is how anyone cannot see that as an unacceptable outcome and an unacceptable risk is beyond him. It's puzzling. And someone has to do something about it. The difference between this president and like the 6 presidents that preceded him were that he's the only one that's actually been willing to do something about it. Everyone says Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but you got to do something about it at some point. And he's been willing to address that threat. And that's what he promised he would do when he got elected, by the way, is address threats like this.
Secretary.
Yeah, I wish I knew your name, guys. I apologize. Can you put name tags on?
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary.
Who are you with?
I'm with Rudao Media Network.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, the President has said multiple times that weapons were provided to the Kurdish groups to pass on the Iranian people. However, Kurdish political parties and the regional government says they have not received such weapons. Even some claim these weapons remain in the U.S. base in the region. Can you clarify who those weapons were given to and whether you intend to retrieve them or still want to pass to the Iranian people?
Yeah, look, ultimately, what the president is expressing, and I think has repeatedly, is he wished the Iranian people had, look, he's heartbroken by these images. You think about it, you're an Iranian, okay? You're unhappy that your economy doesn't work for you. You don't have freedom. You don't have an opportunity to express yourself. You've got friends that have been shot in the head because they're out protesting. And it's heartbreaking to him to see that these people are abused in this way and have no measures to take against their own government as a result of it. By the way, this goes back, if you guys remember the protests in 2009 where they slaughtered people in the street. This is a vicious regime, guys. Okay? These are people that hang people from cranes in the town square so everyone can see. They continue these executions of people and have continue to do so for over a decade and a half now. And so I think what the president is expressing is the desire that he wishes the Iranian people had an ability to fight back against some of these things that are happening to them. And I would view that as distinct and separate from the specifics of this operation that was ongoing before it concluded, and certainly different from the operation that's going on now. Right there in the...
Regarding Colombia, regarding Colombia, Mr. Secretary...
Right behind you, not Colombia, right there. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. On Lebanon, are
Yes.
we in a ceasefire or less fire? And the second question, do you think you would be able to achieve an agreement between Lebanon and Israel without risking a civil war in Lebanon? What are you doing to risk? What are you doing to...
No, I got it. I got the gist of your question. So look, here's the challenge with Lebanon, okay? There's no problem between the Lebanese government and the Israeli government. Israel doesn't claim any land in Lebanon belongs to them. And by and large, I think a peace deal between Lebanon and Israel is imminently achievable and should be. The problem with Israel and Lebanon is not Israel or Lebanon, it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah operates from inside of Lebanese territory. They terrorize and attack Israelis, but they also are inflicting tremendous damage on the Lebanese people. The reason why Lebanon gets attacked by Israel is because of Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is hiding in some house, launching rockets against Israelis, and then they get hit. So what you're seeing now is Israeli responses to either attacks or perceived threats. And this is not new. This has been going on for a very long time. What is our hope? Our hope is to engage the Lebanese and Israeli governments under our mediation at the table to achieve this. And that is having Lebanese armed forces and a Lebanese government, not just with a willingness, but with the capability to begin to challenge Hezbollah and disarm them. Because the Lebanese people are also victims of Hezbollah. And by the way, on the topic of Hezbollah in Lebanon, who is behind Hezbollah? Why do they exist? They're an agent of Iran. If you go through that Middle East and you identify every problem, Hamas, Hezbollah, to some extent the Houthis, obviously, and others, behind every one of these groups is Tehran. So apart from the nuclear weapons, apart from all these other things, these guys are behind all the bad actors. Hezbollah is a wing. It's an extension of Iranian desire to destabilize the region. So we're very committed to this process. It's not going to be easy. You're asking me a complex question. You know this has been going on for a very long time. It's not going to be easy. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that both sides continue to talk so that progress can be made on some sort of permanent ceasefire that isn't constantly spoiled by Hezbollah and by Hezbollah violence. Right in the middle, right there.
Thank you, sir.
I'm winging it, guys, okay? Right there, yes, sir.
You mentioned the 2 U.S. ships that safely crossed the Strait of Hormuz. Are other ships being told it's safer to get back to regular levels, or are we still going to see limits in place for the foreseeable future?
For obvious reasons, I'm not going to broadcast who we're talking to or who we're telling them to move. I mean, we want these operations to be safe, and I think as it unfolds and ships get through, we'll make those announcements after the fact, just for operational security purposes. But the goal here is pretty simple. Establish a zone of transit that is protected by a bubble, the United States, both naval and air assets, and then allow ships who want to move through there and get to market, to begin to increase confidence in the ability to do so. That doesn't happen in 12 hours. It takes time to set up that bubble and gain that confidence, but that's the goal. We have been in touch. We've been in touch, I don't know, with a bunch of different liners about moving, and we're hoping to continue to improve the security situation, and we'll start to see some of that movement, and we'll announce it as it happens after the fact. We're not going to be like broadcasting, hey, tomorrow at 12, ship X is going to be coming through for obvious reasons, because that degrades the security. But we feel confident we're going to be able to achieve that. Look, it's not going to solve the whole Straits problem. It's going to solve a lot of it, but it's important to challenge what Iran is doing now. Guys, again, if you take anything away today, and I can't tell you what to write, but Iran cannot be allowed to normalize this control of the Straits. It's completely unlawful, illegal. It's outrageous. And every country in the world should be joining us and condemning it and doing something about it. But the United States has stepped up and is trying to do something about it.
Regarding Colombia, Mr. Secretary, we've had several tourists.
I'm sorry. We'll see if we get to Colombia today. Go ahead. You guys have an election now. Why don't you wait till after your election?
Mr. Secretary, John Michael Ross with Daily Mail. I was curious about your meeting with Southcom earlier. There was a picture, a map of Cuba behind you. What did you discuss with Southcom about Cuba? And do you have any updates on?
I'm not going to tell you what I discussed with Southcom.
but it had to do something with Cuba.
No,
what about?
Cuba's in Southcom. It's
enough.
The closest part. And so the second point, I was there. Our ambassadors were in from the whole Western Hemisphere. I was addressing them, meeting the general who just took command at Southcom, and there happened to be a map of Cuba. And I said, it'd be good if we took a picture in front of that map, because it's like the closest thing in Southcom to the United States. So there it is. We have maps of other countries, huh?
What about Greenland? Did you update on Greenland?
No, they didn't have that map then. They only had the red, right there in the red.
In the red, okay. Cristina de Telemundo, Mr. Sec. Can I ask you in Spanish or can I ask
Yeah,
you
you can answer in Spanish. You can ask me, and they'll have to translate for them what you ask
So
me.
I'll say it in English, and if you can answer in both languages. Today I checked the webpage of the State Department, and there's still a $25 million bounty on Diosdado Cabello, the Secretary of Interior, for drug trafficking and narco-terrorism. I was wondering if that has been put on hold or if you're negotiating with President Delcy Rodriguez to turn him over.
Yeah, I don't have any updates for you on that. The website is what it is, and that's where it stands. That policy hasn't changed. But, guys, I mean, let's be mature here a little bit. I'm not going to tell you about what we're talking about with the leaders.
Marco Rubio answering questions from the assembled press pack there at the White House. He said the US will continue to target drones and boats that pose a threat to US forces in the Strait of Hormuz. 10 civilian sailors dying because of the conflict in the Strait. He said that the US will respond with lethal efficiency. He said Iran must come to the negotiating table and accept terms. We'll have more reaction to what Marco Rubio said coming up in the world with Yalda at 9 o'clock.
Some of you had like red X's. I'm kidding. No, that's not true. Go ahead.
Returning to UK news now, and a primary school teacher who believes that she was spiked while out with friends has launched a petition calling for CCTV to cover all areas of hospitality venues. 24-year-old Molly Penfold reported what she believed was needle spiking to police back in September. The case, however, was dropped partly because there was no CCTV where the alleged attack took place. Well, I spoke to Molly about her experience and her campaign.
September last year, I was out with my friends sort of in the afternoon for some drinks, and I went to the toilet, and the stairway was very narrow. And as I was coming down, there was a man sort of waiting at the bottom, and I just thought he was waiting for me because it was a very small stairwell.
Waiting for you to pass.
Yeah, and then as I was about halfway down, he came up, and then as he passed me, he bumped into my arm, and he sort of held me. He was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry." I was like, "Oh, that's fine," thinking nothing of it. And then about 10 minutes after that, I joined my friends, and then I just have no memory at all. I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk by myself. I then blacked out, and I started throwing up. And then that next morning, when I woke up, I had like a bruise on the back of my left arm, and there was a little bit of blood on my top that I was wearing. And then when I was lifting up my arm, it was really sore, like, you know, when you've had like an injection or something, and to lean on. And that's when I realised something wasn't right. So I put a police statement forwards.
Yeah, you reported this to the Metropolitan Police as soon as you had an inkling of what had happened to you.
Yeah, so the next day I then reported it, and then they came and took my statement. And then about a month afterwards, I got a call from them saying that they'd closed my case because there was no CCTV along that stairwell that happened, and because I didn't remember what he looked like or what he was wearing, because I didn't think I'd have to remember those details. Of course. Because there was nothing they could go on, then they dropped it. And I remember like hanging up that phone and feeling really angry because, you know, I was actually signed off work because of the anxiety that this induced. I'm now having to get hepatitis B boosters to make sure that I'm okay. Yeah. And you know, I've had so much happen because of this, and this man who did it is potentially just walking around free and having no consequences for his actions. So yeah, I started a petition about requiring bars and pubs to have CCTV like surrounding the toilets, just to sort of...
Because it's a literal blind spot for so many venues. There's CCTV in bars that obviously overlooks the bars, so there would be evidence if you had your drinks mic'd at the bar. But outside toilets and in those narrow corridors, it's literally a blind spot.
Yeah, because I looked up, before I started the petition, I looked up, like, is it illegal, where is it a legal requirement for places, establishments to have CCTV, and it said in high traffic areas. So obviously, you know, those corridors or those stairwells to toilets aren't considered those high traffic areas. So yeah, I started this petition because I know that it potentially wouldn't prevent people from doing it, you know, like people would still think that they have, you know, the right to do this to others, but I just wanted to sort of gain from it, helping people get those answers and sort of receive that sense of justice.
And also, it could be crucial in building a case and leading to prosecutions, because the difficulty of proving, never mind getting justice for this crime, is a huge problem, spiking on the rise. But again, like I said, the evidence, because you have to go to hospital literally within hours of it happening, and you're not always in that place. So having that extra layer of evidence is vital for victims of this.
Yeah, definitely, because like, as you said, I went to the hospital too late, really, because it happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So then I went to hospital about 2 o'clock the next afternoon. You know, it had been like 24 hours, really, and they said, you know, we can't actually...
These kind of drugs will have worked their way through your system.
Exactly. And I think that's just, yeah, that's why I've started this, because I just want people to not be left in the position that I was left in, because...
Well, the case was closed, but for you, it affects you now. I mean, you know, it was September last year, and that's actually not that long ago.
Like, when I walk past people, even if I'm in, you know, my local shop or anything, I, like, tense my arms and, like, cross my arms so that I'm sort of limited, you know, like, making sure space between others is a lot larger. You know, if I'm going out, I feel very anxious before going out. I never feel like I can just go to the toilet by myself anymore. I feel like I can't go up to the bar by myself anymore. And it's really affected me, and I just, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Again, this happened to you as a young woman just out enjoying drinks with your friends, and you don't know what happened. You don't even know the face of someone that did it to you. It all happened, and you woke up and it's happened to you without you knowing, and I can only imagine how distressing that is.
Like, I have a big thing about control, and being in control. It's probably why I became a teacher, because, and I think that's where this anxiety stemmed from, was the fact that my control was stripped from me so quickly and so easily.
Within seconds.
Yeah, and I was then, that was just gone, and I think that's sort of where, yeah, that anxiety stemmed from, just knowing somebody could just take it and then it's out of my hands.
And leave you so vulnerable and with lasting effects. And like I said, the case is closed, but for you, it may never be. And, you know, there's an average of 225 allegations of spiking with drugs or alcohol reported to the Met Police every month, but that's likely the tip of the iceberg because, as we said, it's so difficult to prove. People don't know what's happened. They probably don't bother reporting it. And it's not just a London problem, it's a problem all over. Sussex Police, over 300 reports of spiking last year. And anecdotally, you've been overwhelmed since going public with your story by people getting in touch, not just women, although this crime disproportionately affects women and girls, but men as well. Has it surprised you how prevalent this crime is?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously, you know, beforehand I was like, oh yeah, people get spiked and things, and I hadn't really heard about spiking through needles. I didn't really, you know, I thought it was all through drink. And then obviously once it happened to me, and then I went public with it and shared it with my friends and my colleagues, and, you know, interviewed by other people, I had, like, people that I work with come out to me saying, oh, that happened to my brother, that happened to my dad, that happened to my best friend when we were at uni, that happened to me. And the amount of people that then said, oh, but, you know, I didn't report it or anything, because they were like, what's the point? And I think that's that big thing, like, there's always a point to this, because, you know, for me, my case is closed, it's done. But I want to help others to get those answers.
Well, a big thank you to Molly for sharing her story with us. You can find details of her petition on our social media. Now, next tonight, to a story that we've covered a lot here on the programme, the state of maternity care right across the country. Well, today, midwives came together in Westminster to call for more funding for the profession, to create jobs for newly qualified midwives, funded training and fairer bursaries. Their message: the UK is facing a maternity staffing crisis, yet newly trained midwives simply cannot get jobs. I went to Parliament Square to talk to those taking part.
Today is International Day of the Midwife, and it takes place against a backdrop of a maternity care crisis here in the UK. Midwifery itself symptomatic of that, a profession pushed to breaking point. Many midwives, student midwives and their allies turning out in central London today to voice their concerns about the issues that's facing them. Today, not so much a cause for celebration, but a call to action. Let's speak to the organiser of today's protest, Safia Saad. Safia, really good to see you from Fund Future Midwives UK. Why is it important for everybody to come out today?
So it's really important to come out today because we are about to qualify. So I'm 3 months away from qualification and I'm not going to have a job. I'm qualifying into unemployment. This is my dream career, as it is with the hundreds of people that are going to qualify, or thousands of people that are going to qualify this year. And there is a massive shortage of jobs. We've done freedom of information requests which show really sobering numbers that many trusts in London and across England have a shortage of jobs, so they have way less jobs than the number of students that they are training, such as it is for my trust. They really want to hire me and they really want to hire the other students that are about to qualify, but there's just no funding because the government has slashed it.
And once you have a job, conditions are bleak. Midwives facing burnout. We talk about the conditions that they're facing. Talk to me about what life is like on a maternity ward.
I mean, Leah Hazard, for example, today we've submitted her petition into Downing Street and she's campaigned a lot about the working conditions of midwives. Again, review after review has stated that shortage of midwives and inadequate staffing leads to burnout and leads to, women not receiving the care that they need and the care that they deserve. We are here to serve our community. We're here to serve the women and birthing people, but we're being stopped. And that's why we're here today. This is my dream job and I'm being pushed out before I'm even in. Continuity of care is the gold standard of midwifery, and this is what review has said. But for us to implement that into the maternity services, we need more midwives, and we're just not seeing that reflected.
For the general public looking at what's happening today, in terms of maternity care being in crisis and midwives unable to get jobs, that doesn't add up. So what is it you want the general public to know and the government to do about it?
I want the general public to know that we are ready to serve. We complete 2,300 clinical hours. We facilitate a minimum of 40 births to qualify. We pay for our training. So like with the other degrees, it's very different. You don't qualify with a qualification. You're not trained to do a certain job. Like I did a law degree. Exactly. I did a law degree. I didn't expect to get a job as a solicitor or a barrister. I know there's training contracts for that, but I'm training for a profession. I qualify. We all qualify with really high skills, and the society is losing on these incredible midwives.
And it's not just midwives and their families suffering. It's women in midwives' care and their families too.
100%. And I think a really key point is that women's birthing conditions are midwives' working conditions. But I want nothing more than to help support families, but I'm not being allowed to do that because there are no jobs. I'm already having to consider going back into law or any other fields that I'm going to be able to get a paycheck.
Midwifery is political and midwifery is about activism. So in theory...
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.
Hi there, welcome to the DHL Sports Hub on Sky News. Coming up, golf's Cameron Young shows why he should be seen as a major contender this summer with a big win over Scotty Scheffler on the PGA Tour. And is there any stopping the men's world #1 in tennis, Jannik Sinner? We hear from the Italian after he breaks another record with victory at the Madrid Open. But we start with Formula One and a frustrated Lando Norris who believes McLaren got their strategy wrong and missed an opportunity to win their first Grand Prix of the season in Miami on Sunday. Kimi Antonelli won instead, but only after Norris had built a lead of almost 2 seconds approaching the sole pit stop. Mercedes brought the Italian in first, giving him an extra lap on fresh tyres and enough momentum to get past the world champion when he returned to the track. Antonelli then stayed ahead, leaving Norris thinking of what might have been.
He should have boxed first, simple as that. I don't know if my stop being 2 tenths quicker would have helped. In some ways he could have made it worse because he could have just got a better run all the way around turn 2 and 3 and easily passed me, so let's, I think we just have to be honest and say we should have boxed before. We shouldn't have been waiting. He was quite a bit quicker at that point of the race. I told the team that I didn't quite at the pace comparing to him at that point, and we didn't really seem to do a lot about it. So yeah, we have to go review things. Honestly, I think the win was, we could have fought for it more. I don't know if he still would have had better pace. His pace was better than us today, so I don't know if he still would have come out behind me, and maybe he still would have overtaken me, but we could have done more to defend for the win today.
Antonelli's success makes him the first driver to win from each of their first 3 pole positions. The teenager also extended his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship, but maintains he's still far from the finished article.
I feel stronger and stronger every time, more in control of the situation. I still think that sometime, you know, I could remain a bit more calm. I was a bit stressed when I had a couple of downshift issue and upshift, and I was very stressed, and I should have just stayed a bit more calm. But overall, you know, was a strong race, and I'm happy with that we brought it home.
I hope he can continue on this positive slope. Most important is not to be carried away. We have a good car. Hopefully the upgrades work next race. But he has a fierce competitor in his teammate also who wasn't happy with the track this weekend. So just important to keep both feet on the ground. Leading with someone really putting pressure on you from behind, particularly at the beginning of the stints with Norris, and then sustaining this pressure and being able to drive away is really a great character trait that he has among the many, the speed, and now you add to that some more experience. I think we're talking about lots of success in the future.
So Antonelli is now 20 points clear of George Russell, who finished 4th. Second place plus victory in Saturday's sprint lifts Norris into 4th overall, level on points with Lewis Hamilton. Norris also took his first DHL fastest lap of 2026 as he tried to chase down Antonelli. It came on lap 35 and was 0.08 of a second better than Oscar Piastri. It was Arvid Lindblad in his Racing Bull who posted the DHL fastest pit stop with a time of 2.08 seconds. Antonelli was second, meaning Mercedes are now just 3 points off the leader's Ferrari overall. And although he was 5th after starting second, Max Verstappen was driver of the day, presented by Salesforce. The public rewarding his determined drive, which included a 360-degree spin and 3 minor collisions on the opening lap. Well, F1's visit to Miami brought out a series of big names to the circuit, and it seems many of them were keen to see one man in particular. Here are the best moments from Martin Brundle's latest pre-race grid walk.
Bam, Martin Brundle, Sky F1, how you doing? Welcome to the grid.
Man, you might as well. I'm impressed to be here, man. It's exciting. I'm looking forward to a great race.
Yeah, you play for the Miami Heat, but who are you cheering for today here? Who you supporting?
That's what I'm cheering for. This is my first one, so I want somebody to make me a fan.
Can I interrupt you, DJ Khaled? How are you?
How you doing? You are live. Say hi to my fans.
Hello, DJ's fans.
That's right. What's up, brother? How can I help you?
I strongly suspect you've got more people looking at that than I've got looking at this.
But love, you know what I'm saying? We're spreading that love, positivity, that great energy. We represent We the Best in the most beautiful city in the world, the home of We the Best, Miami.
Yeah, you love this business, don't you?
I absolutely do, and especially this year. I mean, that break really made a big difference for a lot of teams, certainly with McLaren. Red Bull's moved up, so it's really exciting.
Jimmy, Martin Brundle, how are you doing?
Oh my God, Martin Brundle, what are you off to? What do you need? Can I get anything for you?
I need some funny lines. I need everything. Cup of British tea.
What do you want? What do we do here? Come on, you're the best.
You can keep that if you like.
I'm so good to see you. Look sharp. I'm so happy to see you. I was hoping to see you. This is the highlight right here.
Colin, Martin Brundle, Sky F1. We got. How are you?
How are you, man? It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to see you.
After all these years, you don't write, you don't call. Look at this shirt.
I know. Hey, I wanted to blend in Miami.
Yeah.
On to golf, and could Cameron Young be a contender to win his first major title this summer? Well, with 9 days to go until the PGA Championship in Philadelphia, he's up to 3rd in the world rankings after his second win of 2026. It came at the Cadillac Championship in Miami as he beat the world #1 Scotty Scheffler by 6 shots to see out a wire-to-wire success, less than 2 months after also taking the Players' Championship at Sawgrass. Young has been in the top 4 at each of the 4 majors without winning and will be fancied to change that in the weeks ahead.
I had different parts of the game working on different days. You know, today I drove it a lot better. First couple days I putted great and drove it a little bit more all over the place. So You know, thankfully, I feel like I've got a lot of tools right now, and throughout the week, I was able to use, you know, different parts of the game to keep myself moving in the right direction.
How excited are you to play in all three majors in the upcoming season?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, major season is a great time of year. We've got a great event next week in Charlotte at the Truist, so that's where I'm going now, and you know, obviously eyes are toward the PGA, but I've got a tournament to play in between now and then.
Jannik Sinner insists he's trying to live in the moment rather than thinking about which tennis records he might break in the future, after becoming the first man to win 5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles. His latest victory came with a dominant 6-1, 6-2 demolition of Alexander Zverev in the final of the Madrid Open. Sinner needed just 57 minutes to wrap up his 4th successive tournament victory. The Italian has now won each of his last 23 matches and looks to be in unstoppable form before the French Open this month.
These stats, they're very nice and they're beautiful to have. In the same time, you know, we talk about Rafa, Novak and Roger, you know, they did this, what I'm trying to do now for 15 plus years, and I'm just, you know, at the start, and I don't play for records like this. I play for myself, I play for my family and also my team, because it's nice to share moments like this also with my team, you know, because they know exactly what's behind. But usually I've always been someone who, at the end of a stage of the tournament, I like to raise my level, and most of the time I am capable to do so, because I like also the adrenaline and, you know, on bigger stages. But it's also not easy to do, you know. So,
but you're doing it really well.
I'm trying, yeah, I'm trying. So it was good.
So, Sinner gathering more and more momentum, but Marta Kostyuk is still taking in her very first tournament win at WTA 1000 level after beating Mira Andreeva in the women's final. An emotional moment for the Ukrainian after her 6-3, 7-5 success, which resulted in some acrobatic celebrations as she moved to a career-high 15th in the rankings.
I had some goals that I wanted to focus on with my footwork, with my eyes, you know, because in semifinals, for example, I would rush too much, and, you know, here it's not easy. When you are mistiming, the ball is not landing in the court for sure. So that was a struggle a little bit. I wanted to just show a good tennis. To do so, I needed to focus on specific things, and I'm very happy I did, and it worked out. I tried to think the most about that I really want to enjoy this match to the fullest, and no matter how it will go, my way or not my way, and I'm very happy I achieved that. And, you know, for me the winning is a big bonus, but I wasn't going on the court thinking about that I want to win it. I really wanted to just enjoy.
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.